I'm totally kidding.
I know.
Okay, well, let's get started. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. These are, and welcome to a table talk. If I don't think any of you have been to one of these, so we appreciate you logging on and joining us. We started these because it's lonely these days, and we wanted something where you could come and talk to people, but also get information and kind of see how other people are feeling at the same time, or how they're handling their business, whatever it may be. So throughout this, Tanya is our expert, and she's going to chat with us and give us some good info. But we also would we want conversation. So if you want to talk, don't feel like you have to, but if you have something to chime in or questions, go ahead and chime in, because we want this to be an open discussion. It's also just a way for us to kind of get to know each other a little bit better, which is hard to do in these virtual days. So we're trying here. So Julie Griffith is one of our concierge with the CBC. And she, when we were talking about topics, she thought this would be a good topic because we're all going a little bit crazy these days. Some of us are, starting to drink at noon. No, some of us are, you're gaining weight, you're just everything. Like, it's just a hard time. So we were chatting and she said, why don't we do a topic about mental health? Because people are going a little nuts right now. So here we are. So I'm going to kick it over to Julie, and she's going to tell you a little bit about Tanya, and then we'll get started.
Hello, good morning. So another reason I thought about mental health is I've seen more organizations and collaborations and more talk about it other places. So I just thought it might be helpful for this group as well. So I'll do a little intro about Tanya. She's a licensed professional clinical counselor supervisor, and she earned her Master's of Education from Xavier University. She has more than 20 years of experience working with children, adolescents, couples, and families. She was recently appointed to the Ohio Counselor, Social Worker, Marriage and Family Therapist Board in January 2021 by Governor Mike DeWine. And in addition, she's been referred to as a therapist by Dr. Philship. She does do autographs, but that'll be later. So her goal as a counselor is to create a supportive environment in which her clients can begin to understand their struggles while also discovering what barriers may exist that affect their lives. Many of the clients she assists are working through various life challenges, including anxiety, depression, or grief. Others may need guidance around relationship difficulties, substance abuse, or anger. Tanya's approach is warm, non-judgmental, conversational, and solution-focused, using cognitive therapy, reality therapy, and rational emotive behavior therapy. She focuses on the here and now to help her clients. Her clients visit her office in a very comfortable atmosphere that offers a safe and supportive place to talk. So I will just say, I met Tanya many years ago in a mom's group, and I've talked to her and she's been fantastic, like to clarify for me, like this is it, kind of bottom line. And my kids, because I separated like 9-10 years ago, I always wanted my kids, like they were very young, but I'm like divorced parents, and they love her. Like I'll say I might go talk to Tanya and they're like, wait, can I go see Tanya? So I think it's great that she works so well with all ages. So Tanya.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess I'll just tell you a little bit about how I began in this practice. I met my business partner, Maggie, through Xavier. We went to the program together, and it's kind of always a goal of mine to be in private practice. And I had worked in some other practices in the past, and called her up one day. I'm like, we should totally open a practice in Loveland. And we did. And it was actually in 2008 during the recession, which probably, when I look back on it, I'm like, what were we even doing? We started out in like a 1-room little building down the street. And we gradually grew, and we never wanted to be a huge practice. We wanted to have a very like tight-knit group of therapists, and just to be able to have really good quality service. And I know a lot of practices bring on tons of therapists, and for us that was just too much and also a liability. But because you just never know, like, you know, you want to make sure you have good people on your staff. So we've been in practice here at Hope Restored. It'll be 13 years in June, and we all have different specialties. I would say I work a lot with kids, adolescents. I used to do a lot more substance abuse work, but I've kind of pulled away from that, and I am doing a lot of work with messy divorces, which is a good time. Not really, it's very stressful. But so, and then Maggie, my business partner, she specializes in working with kids who are on the autism spectrum and their families. And then Liz, she also works with kids on the spectrum. And then Dana, she works a lot with some of our teenagers. So it's a variety. I mean, we work with lots of different populations. I didn't. So I'm sorry. This Zoom stuff is very like, you
It's
guys.
so weird.
Well, he popped up. I'm like, what's he doing? Like, do I talk to him? So
It did that to me too. I thought somebody else joined because everything moved around. It did that to me too.
No.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask what you're seeing these days. Like, how are things?
Well, they're I guess not great. I mean, I'm pretty straight up. So when the pandemic began, you know, I was thinking about it today, like for myself, I think back to what's going to happen to all of us. I was afraid to go outside. I thought maybe this is airborne. Are we going to like die if we go on a walk? So that initial, at that point in time, it was like a lot of fear-based. How do we go day to day? You know, the unknown was very scary, and it's still scary. Over the course of the last year, I would say the increase of anxiety, obviously, increased depression, the isolation that everyone feels is unlike obviously anything I've ever seen. We never had a training for a pandemic. We never had a training for a shutdown. So, you know, I'm sitting in sessions sometimes in the beginning and I'm like, yeah, I feel like that too in my head. I mean, but one thing that has been really super sad that I've seen more during this pandemic that I would see maybe once every couple of years is, let's say someone has an underlying mental health issue, maybe bipolar or usually bipolar. I'm seeing an increase in like mania, which means when a person can become they can become extremely anxious. They might be sobbing uncontrollably. They could be having hallucinations. They could be a pressured speech where you're just talking. Back in the day, they called it like a mental breakdown. I have seen that more in this past year in teenagers and also adults than ever before. I don't know if that answers your question.
So are you seeing more people that, you know, never had issues before and they're suddenly feeling?
Yeah, I would say yes, definitely. We have a lot more referrals related to like the pandemic and the isolation. But like my current caseload, I would say some of the people that were stable became very unstable. But for all of us, obviously, the isolation has been hard, and trying to explain that to little kids. I don't know how many of you have kids, but I have two daughters, a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, and it's been interesting. Like, very interesting to try to explain things that I don't have answers to.
Well, because I was thinking about that, like I have 3 kids. I have a 5th grader. So wait, let me see. 10 years old, 7-year-old, and 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old. And so the middle, the 2nd grader, she's back in school 5 days a week.
Okay.
But our oldest, he does the hybrid thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the days that he is home, I mean, he is almost unbearable. Like he needs interaction, you know? And then we've struggled because we let him do like the online games, like he's addicted to Fortnite. But you know, it's hard because it gives him interaction, but then it makes him more of a jerk. So it's just really hard to balance as a parent, like,
Yes.
you know, what I should do, because he needs interaction right now.
I agree.
I don't know.
That's definitely, I mean, for kids, you know, a lot of times 2 years ago, looking at gaming, I did look at gaming different because it's like, okay, come on, you can go outside, you can do something different. But during this period of life, that could be their only interaction with their friends. And it's hard to explain that to some parents because they may not see it that way. But I do understand. I do think, like, just as a mom, not as a therapist, online gaming can make you a jerk. Not always, but it adds to it.
Yeah. Why do he gets like
is shooting? It's very aggressive. Like I noticed my 11-year-old boy is, and I hear him talking so much with his friends because we moved school districts. So it's a way that he still is in touch with kids down at Kilgore and Hyde Park. And he even has teams of Madeira with Hyde Park. They're talking so much, I don't know how they're playing. But also then there's times when he's so intense, I could be standing there asking him, hey, this is going to be for dinner. It's like he doesn't hear me, not even because of the headset, like he's such in his zone. I mean.
Well, and that's what I mean about when he acts like a jerk. It's because he's so just like I wish I could focus on something like that, you know, like I would be so productive.
No, I thought about taking up gaming myself, but I don't think my attention span would work that way.
Yeah, don't be a jerk, Christine.
It's crazy. So for us average people that like don't have underlying issues that we know of,
Okay.
I'm just teasing. What do you tell people? Because I think we all feel like we're in that slump, and you know, today I have a lunch appointment and I'm like so excited. Like I put real makeup on and you know, it's just I'm like, well, wait, can I still wear my yoga pants though? I don't know. Like I'm
Right. You know, and it's like, I guess like recently I wrote an article for the Loveland magazine, and it was talking about like the stress of COVID and relationships and just trying to find, and some people may think it sounds cheesy, but oh well, just trying to find like a way to ground yourself. I mean, for me, I obviously I'm not going to the gym, and that was like my outlet. So I walk. I think I actually might need a hip replacement. I'm not even kidding. I've walked so much during all this time just because I have to have an outlet. So finding time to obviously take care of yourself and finding something that you can find joy in and I mean, I really do believe, I'm a huge believer in you got to get your sleep. You got to try to eat well. Believe me, I have had my wine during this time, but you got to keep that under control. You can't, you know, and I know that alcohol has increased dramatically, like the use of alcohol big time. I mean, wine with DeWine in Ohio, right? Like,
it was beer with Bashir in Kentucky.
I heard that. I know. But I guess just every day, like trying to figure out something that's going to help you stay grounded and like focused. If I don't know if that's answering your question or not.
No, it is. What were you going to say, Julie?
Like, I always feel like the kids, there's more going on in their heads than I realized, and I used to always feel like I'm close with my kids, but I kind of just ignore that. I kind of not intentionally dismiss it, but they know so much, right? Because now my kids all have phones and I'm not restricting what they're going to, like they can see the news or CNN pops up. And is there any advice or like what you do or anything you look for with your kids if there's more stress than you really may realize? Or
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I mean, a lot of times people will say my kid's spending more time in their room, or they're isolating even more so, or they're not eating, their grades are slipping. I mean, those always can be indicators that something is going on. Obviously, every kid is different. My daughter made up a word. Don't try to therapize me. I don't even know. I can't even say the word. I don't even know. I'll have to ask her how to spell it. But, I know. So I often suggest just talk to them, ask them,
Yeah.
how are you? What's going on? And most of the time they're not going to be like, well, mom, and sit down, and you might have to find different ways to pull it out of them. Driving in the car, when you're just driving, you're not face to face, that can be good. But could bring up, like last week, the Capitol, that was horrific. And, pretending like it didn't happen isn't good. And you're absolutely right. They do see things, they hear things. And sometimes they don't know how to ask those kind of questions. So sitting down with them and just saying, hey, I think we should kind of talk about this. How do you feel about this?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was on the news this morning it was the Today Show. They were saying how these radical groups are forming because they just sit in their house and sit on social media and, look at all this horrendous stuff. And I actually I'm one of those people that I kind of started ignoring things because it was messing with my head. Like I wasn't becoming radical, but I was just getting upset, like, it's stressful.
It's overwhelming and it's scary.
Yeah.
Good. And I think to pull back, like I'm not on any social media. I've never been on Facebook. I just avoid all of that. But I hear it. I mean, people, last week I'm in here and they're like, did you hear about the Capitol? I'm like, no. And they're telling me and I'm like, oh, okay. And then later I'll go back and look it up. But I absolutely keep that in check for myself because you can get it. You can go down a million rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
I was gonna say one of the things you need to leave the kids feeling is that that things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
How you react is how they'll react.
That's a good
If you
point.
get blown out over the place, they're going to get blown out all over the place. And I think the stability that you show will make them feel better about themselves and say, well, they got this. We can do whatever we're going to do.
That's a perfect point. That's great. I'm glad you said that because, and some people can do that better than others. I have some parents that were in the beginning of the pandemic were really freaking out, and I asked them, how do you think your kids are feeling? And they're like, oh, they don't know what's going on. And I'm like, no, they do. They know.
Yeah, I have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. 20-year-old's a boy, 17-year-old's a girl, and they couldn't be any more opposite. The 20-year-old, he still lives at home. He's in his second year of college, goes to Cincinnati State. And we're watching some news last night and just the whole historical perspective of the impeachment, the Capitol building, the pandemic, all of that sort of cumulatively, and he's a very up to current events kid. And the conversation led to, when you look at where we are in 20, 30 years from now, we'll be looking back at this time as though it's sort of like it was in the late 60s and the mid 60s with the JFK assassination, then Martin Luther King and the Vietnam War and then Watergate. It's like, I don't know, if you look at it through that lens, yeah, this is a historic time, but this country's been through an awful lot, living through that era.
Right.
Sorry, with the race riots and everything else that was going on in the Civil Rights Act, that was probably a worse time for this country than it is now.
Yeah,
And
that's
we came into that pretty good. So, looking at things with a giant lens rather than focusing on the current, especially for kids, that kind of opened his eyes a little bit, made him feel a little bit better, brought his anxiety level down. And he's
good.
kind of a history nerd anyway. So it's like, long term, we're going to be fine. It's just getting through this and staying positive and understanding that, tomorrow's not yesterday. You got to move forward.
Yeah.
So let's get through this crappy year and, try to just improve on things rather than.
Right. That's a good
So it was a good conversation. It was a good conversation. That's my only point.
That's really good.
That is a good point.
I was going to ask if anyone has, if you don't mind, you don't have to share obviously, but if anyone has had COVID or had to quarantine with your family due to COVID and how that went. If you don't mind.
I had it in like mid-July and
Okay.
it knocked me out I was really sick.
Okay.
Son had it same time period. I think I got it from him. He felt like he had the allergies for 2 days and he was fine, but we quarantined him together. We have, we think my daughter, she was very, very sick in February last year before really everybody started getting diagnosed. And I can remember going to the doctor with her. She tested negative for flu. Doctor said you have some sort of viral infection, just rest, stay in bed for, we think that was it. So it kind of hit our house pretty hard through that time period. And you're right, the isolation's weird. Getting through quarantine is just like, but when you feel like crap.
Yeah.
I slept most of the time, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
I was in bed for, I would take a nap and wake up 7 hours later.
Wow.
So that kind of made it go faster. But it's just one of those things, you're sick, you get over it. It's how you approach it.
What I've experienced with my families is they start blaming each other. Who gave me corona? Where'd you get that? And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Can't get into that. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
You can't get into that because it's everywhere. I mean, you could have gotten it from wherever, who knows?
Yeah.
How long were you out? How long were you like really sick, Martin?
I felt really bad for about 7 days. So it was about a week. But it was like really, really just no energy. It wasn't like I had a horrible headache. And like I said, I'd wake up at the normal time period at 6, 7 a.m. I'd walk the dog. I'd hit the couch and at 10 o'clock, I'd fall asleep. I'd wake up, it'd be 7 at night.
Wow.
Like 3, 4, 5 days in a row. Just drank a lot of water, didn't eat much. I lost like 10, 15 pounds. Gained it right back because of all the alcohol and the beer when you're quarantined. But work was really good with it. I think it would add to the stress a lot if you're self-employed.
Yes.
Or if you're on commission. Thank God I work at a bank and, they were great. That really, really de-escalated the stress factor. Folks who are, self-employed or you make money from tips or you're a waiter or you're a business owner. The stress of that can be really, really difficult, I'm sure. So it wasn't as bad because of that. Thank God.
That's
You
good.
feel like you have any residual problem? Memory
No,
or anything?
I really don't.
Good.
There was a 3 or 4 week period afterwards where, I just didn't have much energy. If I walk up steps, I'd feel, my legs would cramp a little bit, but that's all gone. I think I'm fine now. Yeah.
Some of the research is showing it linked to memory and possibly even Alzheimer's down the road. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Wow.
So I can speak to the being a commissioned, with my work and being out of commission for about 2 weeks. So my family did have to experience it about 3 weeks ago. My children are 13, 11, and 7. So we're in a neighborhood where there's lots of young kids, lots of friends, lots of time being spent in each other's homes. And my daughter she's now 8. She wakes up and is like out the door. Saturday or Sunday morning, like they're constantly, there's 3 or 4 little girls and they're always with one of them or all of them. And so we were most worried about how is she going to be able to sit in the house with us and not go out to see her friends. And it was amazing how well she did. I mean, the first day she actually wrote a little note and said that we're all in COVID, so please don't knock on the door. And she was like, almost like, I don't know, a little bit excited about it. But I told my friends, I'm like, I think Claire actually likes us and didn't know it.
Oh, that's
So
cute.
even our boys, the 13 and 11-year-old, they spent most of their time in the basement gaming when they're not at school or they're not doing something else. And they actually spent a lot more time in the living room and a lot more time like doing board games in the living room. So we were very surprised by that as well. It was ironic. We kind of all came together and all stuck together and stayed pretty happy for at least 5 to 7 days of it.
I love that. That's awesome.
I wonder how normal that is.
What was that? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I just said, I wonder how normal that is.
Well, I don't know. That's a good point. I do feel like I mean, I probably sound more doom and gloom, which I don't mean to be, but I do feel like there have been a lot of positives that have come out of this strange scenario that we're living in. I know a lot of families talking to me about the time that they're spending playing board games or doing puzzles or like talking more. And I know for myself, me and my daughters have walked so much and spent more time that we would never have had together. So that's awesome.
We found this kind of like a prelude to retirement. I'm on the verge of doing that, and my wife is. And I always would joke her when she would talk about me. I said, "You really want to be home with me all day?" And one day she walks in and says, "I do want to be home with you all day."
Oh,
Because we're spending tons of time together. I mean, nothing like in 40 years of marriage, like, just we both had our careers and things like we did a lot of stuff together, but we always had that 8-hour window where we were with another crowd or another environment. And this is totally different. And, she's been teaching online for Thomas More at home now. And just, but so far so good. But it's kind of been a test for us of what retirement might look like. Although we do plan on traveling a little bit more and going out a little bit more. We do miss going out to dinner and seeing friends and family. I'll tell you, it's been tough though. We've had 9 people we know pass away from this already in Northern Kentucky. I have 3 friends on ventilators right now.
Gosh.
Just and it makes you really think hard about what you do.
Wow. Right.
That's crazy, Pat. I think you win the bad prize. I don't know that many. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And Christine, I'll take us back to CBC. When you guys had the 100th anniversary celebration, or was it maybe it was the Rotary Club? Covington Rotary had it down at the Radisson. And I go down there and where Matt is, and I run into a friend of mine, Ken Harper, who used to be Secretary of State, and that. And I used to be county commissioner in Boone County. And we hugged each other, hands or whatever. A few weeks later, his wife Eileen passes away from it, and then he had it. And that's how close you come to these things, for whatever. And fortunately, he's right. In fact, tomorrow's his 90th birthday. Mention that to Pat. You can send him a note. But just you just never realize how close you come to the virus.
Yeah. Wow.
I texted one of my friends the other day and I was like, I don't think of myself as a hugger, but I'm really missing hugs.
Yeah.
It's like I miss hugging my friends, My girlfriend, her dad passed away, and it's like, I just want to give her a big hug. And, to not be able to do that stinks. Well, does anybody else have any questions or input or anything else? So I feel like our takeaways are what, Tanya? Like, just do something for yourself.
Well, like I took a couple notes, just like kind of a perspective. Just being like, I guess, obviously try to take time for yourself. I mean, that's people, you hear that, but do you really do that? And if something's going on in their family, like really listen to your members of your family. Don't just hear them, like really listen to what they're saying. And with kids, sometimes they're not always as verbal or vocal. So you might need to find a different way. You might need to be a jerk and play a game with them, like get in a game and connect on a different level. But just trying to engage them. And you all made some good points about reassuring them that everything is going to be okay. We are going to get through this. I mean, but also being real, like Pat said. I mean, people have died and it is scary. And I always just try to be very straightforward with my girls, obviously not to the point of scaring them, but not, let's see what else I got here. Expressing gratitude, I think, is important in a family. I think that's overlooked a lot of times. We're busy, we're parenting, but just expressing love and gratitude. Exercise.
As you were going through this, it's funny. What was that, Martin? Was that Martin or Pat?
Me.
Oh.
I just said, I think exercise is huge. Get them out. I mean, even I always think it's just me, but if my kids who are 16, 13, and almost 12, if they get out and run around, they're so different. Like, I mean, they're less mean, they're less on each other.
Right.
Except
Yeah.
Garrett.
Pet adoptions exploded, I think, this past year too. People are
Yes.
dogs and cats and
Yes. We got a bearded dragon at the beginning. We have a zoo at my house, so don't even get me started. And I'm feeding stray cats in the parking lot.
Yes, you do have like a litter out there.
I don't know what's going on. People will email me. They're like, I was leaving tonight and there's these cats and there's people sitting in the parking lot. I'm like, I can't explain these cats. I think I'm going to have to just put a sign up, and I know there's cats and I know there's people sitting in my parking lot at 9:45 at night playing with them. I guess that's a positive come out of this, right?
Are they therapy? Are they therapy animals? Is that what they are?
Well, in the beginning, I was petting them because I have 5 cats. In the beginning, I was petting them and I do feed them, but I had to stop petting them because it was making one of my cats mad and he started peeing on my clothes. So I stay back. I'm like, don't come close.
Can we delete this part of the recording?
Oh, I forgot that. Oops.
I was wondering what that stain was on your shoulder.
I am who I am. I hope she told you all that.
I got a warning. The others did not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Mm.
Well, if nobody else has anything, I guess we'll let you get back to the boring part of your work day. I appreciate it. What's that, Tanya?
Thank you all. I enjoyed this, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was nice chatting with everybody and seeing some familiar faces. So
Smiling faces, no masks.
I know, a real face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christine, you should have got on here and said it to everybody, where's your mask at?
Yeah, I should have. You're right. The next one I will.
Right.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything, then I guess we'll call it a day. Have a good day, everybody. And
Yeah, have a good day.
Yeah,
Stay healthy.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thanks,
thank
Tanya.
you so much, Tanya.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, Marilyn.